Elara and Frosty, Christmas Storytime in Frosty Hollow. In the heart of Frosty Hollow, a quaint little village covered in snow, lived a young elf named Elara. Unlike the other elves, who were busy making toys for Santa in preparation for Christmas Eve, Elara had a special gift. She could make the most wonderful lights, filled with every color of the rainbow. Her lights brought warmth and joy to everyone who saw them, and every year she would decorate the village with her beautiful creations. One crisp winter morning, as Elara was preparing her lights for the big holiday festival, she heard a strange sound. It was a soft whimper, coming from the edge of the village near the pine forest. She followed the sound until she found a tiny, shivering creature sitting in the snow. It was a young, lost polar bear cub with big, sad eyes. "Oh, you poor thing," Elara said softly, kneeling down beside the cub. "Where is your family?" The cub whimpered again, and Elara could see that he was cold and scared. She wrapped her colourful scarf around the little bear and picked him up gently. "Don't worry," she said. "I'll help you find your way home." Elara carried the cub back to her cozy workshop, where she fed him warm milk and wrapped him in a soft blanket. She named him Frosty, after the village, and Frosty quickly warmed up to Elara, his big eyes following her wherever she went. That evening, as the sun began to set, Elara decided it was time to try to find Frosty's family. She knew they must be worried about him, and she couldn't bear the thought of anyone being sad during the holiday season. She bundled up in her warmest clothes, and with Frosty at her side, she set out into the forest. The forest was dark, but Elara had her lights. She strung them up along the trees as they walked, creating a glowing path through the snow. The lights twinkled in shades of blue, green, pink, and gold, lighting their way and making the forest look magical. As they walked deeper into the forest, they came across a group of forest animals, rabbits, foxes, and even a few deer. They had gathered around a large tree, looking up at something with worried expressions. Elara followed their gaze and saw a mother polar bear pacing back and forth, clearly distressed. "That must be Frosty's mother," Elara said, her heart swelling with hope. She turned to Frosty, who looked up at her with wide eyes, and then at the bear. "Go on, Frosty," she whispered. "Your family is waiting for you." Frosty hesitated for a moment, then trotted forward through the snow. The mother bear turned, and when she saw Frosty, her eyes lit up with joy. She let out a soft growl, and Frosty ran to her, nuzzling against her fur. The other animals cheered, and Elara felt tears of happiness prick her eyes. The mother bear looked at Elara, her eyes filled with gratitude. She let out a gentle growl, as if to say thank you, and Elara smiled. "You're very welcome," she said softly. "I'm so glad Frosty found his way back to you." Elara watched as the bears reunited, and then she turned back towards the village, her heart full. But as she started to leave, the forest animals gathered around her, their eyes wide with admiration. The rabbits hopped up to her, and the foxes wagged their tails. "Would you like to help me finish decorating for the festival?" Elara asked with a smile. The animals nodded eagerly, and together they made their way back to Frosty Hollow, following the glowing path of lights. Back in the village, the townspeople were amazed to see Elara return with a parade of animals behind her. They all gathered in the town square, where Elara and her new friends began to hang her beautiful lights. The rabbits hopped up and down, helping to string the lights along the lower branches, while the deer lifted their heads to hang the lights higher. The entire village worked together, and soon the town square was glowing with Elara's magical lights. The colours danced in the night, filling the village with warmth and joy. The townspeople cheered, and Elara's heart swelled with happiness. "Thank you, everyone," she said, her voice filled with emotion. This is what the holiday season is all about, coming together and helping each other. The villagers, the animals, and even Frosty and his mother, who had followed them back to the village, gathered around the grand tree in the center of the square. They sang carols, shared warm drinks, and celebrated the magic of the season together. As the night went on, Elara looked around at the happy faces, the twinkling lights, and the joy that filled the air. She knew that this was the most special holiday she had ever experienced, not because of the lights or the decorations, but because of the love and kindness that everyone had shared. But the night wasn't over yet. One of the villagers, an elderly elf named Thistle, approached Elara with a twinkle in his eye. "Elara, my dear, I think there's still one more thing we can do to make this night even more magical," he said. "What do you mean?" Elara asked, curious. Thistle gestured to the sky. "The northern lights. I heard that your lights are so special, they might even be able to call the northern lights down to us." Elara's eyes widened. She had never tried anything like that before, but the idea filled her with excitement. She turned to the animals and the villagers. "Shall we try?" she asked. Everyone cheered, and Elara took a deep breath. She closed her eyes and raised her hands to the sky. Slowly she began to weave her lights, creating patterns of color that rose higher and higher. The villagers watched in awe as the lights danced above them, shimmering and twinkling like stars. Suddenly, a glow appeared on the horizon, a soft green glow that grew brighter and brighter. The northern lights were coming. The entire village gasped as the sky above them filled with waves of green, pink, and blue swirling and shimmering in the night. The children laughed and clapped their hands in delight, and Frosty stood on his hind legs, his eyes wide with wonder. The mother bear nuzzled her cub, and the forest animals gathered closer, their eyes reflecting the beautiful lights above. Elara felt a warmth spread through her chest as she watched the sky. She had never imagined that her lights could do something so wonderful. She turned to Thistle, who was smiling at her, his eyes twinkling with pride. "Thank you, Thistle," Elara said, her voice filled with emotion. "This is more magical than I could have ever dreamed." Thistle nodded. "It's because of you, Elara. Your heart is what makes these lights so special." The villagers continued to watch the northern lights, their faces filled with wonder. Elara stood among them, feeling the love and warmth that surrounded her. She knew that this was what the holiday season was truly about. Not just the decorations or the lights, but the way they brought everyone together, creating memories that would last a lifetime. As the night went on, the northern lights continued to dance above Frosty Hollow, and Elara knew that this was a night she would never forget. The magic of the holidays was alive and well, not just in the sky, but in the hearts of everyone around her. And as the first snowflakes of the night began to fall, Elara smiled, knowing that the spirit of the season would always be there, shining brightly in Frosty Hollow. The end.